The assumption that we understand Ange Ushiromiya usually falls apart the moment we stop simplifying her. It's easy to reduce her to a familiar archetype, the isolated survivor obsessing over a tragedy she cannot let go of, but that reading ignores what her struggle actually is. Angie is not someone slowly losing touch with reality. She is someone desperately trying to hold on to a reality that refuses to stay consistent. In Umineko, the tragedy of Rokkenjima never settles in a single truth. Every version of the story clashes with one another. Each new interpretation introduces contradictions that reopen wounds instead of closing them. Because of this, Angie is never searching for one hidden answer waiting to be uncovered. She is trapped between multiple truths that cannot coexist cleanly. That changed the entire nature of her journey. She is not solving a mystery that becomes clear with effort. She is trying to survive inside something that refuses to become clear. Every attempt to understand Rokkenjima only pulls her deeper into the contradictions surrounding it. The more she learns, the heavier the burden becomes. Human beings naturally try to organize confusion into something stable. We want answers that settle uncertainty, but Angie never receives that relief. Instability is not an obstacle she encounters later, it is the foundation beneath her from the very beginning. Each account of the island leaves behind fractures that never fully heal. The mystery does not narrow into a final conclusion, it expands into a deadlock of competing narratives. The longer Angie stays within it, the further she drifts away from resolution. Every new realization adds pressure instead of removing it. She's not looking at a blurry image slowly coming into focus. She is staring at several different versions of the same room, all claiming to be real, while none can erase the others. What makes this even more painful is that Angie cannot simply discard the versions that she's already seen. Once a new possibility enters her mind, it stays there. None of the stories exist in a clear hierarchy where one completely invalidates the rest. Instead, they overlap endlessly, forcing her into a state where understanding stops feeling like discovery and starts feeling like endurance. Normally, mysteries promise closure. We expect the final truth that rewards the effort of searching, but Umineko constantly interrupts the expectation. Every interpretation points toward meaning without fully delivering it. Angie is left suspended between answers that never solidify. Over time, what begins to break down is not her ability to think, but her faith that thinking will lead her somewhere safe. Eventually, the search for truth stops feeling like a pursuit and starts feeling like exposure. Every new answer becomes another weight she has to carry. She is not simply processing information anymore. She is living inside contradictions that refuse to disappear. This becomes the real source of her isolation. It is not just that she is physically alone, it is that she has no shared certainty to return to. Every contradiction reshapes her understanding of the past. Even her sense of self begins to feel unstable. Over time, this uncertainty stops being an external problem and becomes part of Angie's identity. It is not that she completely loses herself, rather her reality never stays long enough for her convictions to harden into something permanent. Every belief she manages to hold on to is eventually shaken by another contradiction. She is no longer standing outside the wreckage trying to examine it from a distance. She has become part of it. At that point, the idea of progress begins to lose meaning. In most stories, moving forward brings someone closer to an answer. For Angie, moving forward only means returning to the same unresolved space from another angle. She's not solving a mystery anymore. She is tracing the outline of something fundamentally unsolvable. The confusion surrounding Rokkenjima does not fade with time. It becomes the atmosphere she lives in. This is where the tragedy becomes irreversible. Angie stops being a detective searching for a solution. It becomes someone trapped in a world where the idea of a real answer no longer means anything. Once the hope for a single, unifying truth dies, she is not left with peace or ignorance. She is left with a reality she has to live inside, even though it can never fully make sense. The longer she remains caught in this cycle, the less it resembles a search for truth and more it resembles a war of attrition. Understanding does not free her. It binds her more tightly to the pain surrounding Rokkenjima, because no interpretation is powerful enough to erase the others. Every new answer only reinforces the instability she is trying to escape. Eventually, Angie reaches a kind of stability, but it offers no comfort. It is simply the acceptance of a limit. The final, perfect truth she was searching for does not exist, meaning becomes something she can never fully reach. Maurice Merleau-Ponty once wrote that we are condemned to meaning. For Angie, that idea feels less like a philosophy and more like a sentence that she cannot escape. There is no untouched truth hidden beneath the stories of Rokkenjima. There are only interpretations that continue colliding with one another. In that sense, knowledge is not an exit, it is a tether. The more Angie understands, the more tightly she becomes bound to the contradictions causing her suffering. The tragedy of Ange Ushiromiya is not that she fails to find the truth, it is that her need to understand is exactly what traps her beneath its weight. And so we must ask ourselves, when understanding itself becomes the source of suffering, was the truth ever capable of saving anyone at all?